Good morning. Senator Joe Pittman is in the studio with us this morning, and our visit is presented by Marcus and Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 4 years in a row in the Best of Indiana County contest. You can visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Todd.
Budget talks are underway, right?
They'll begin. It's like Groundhog Day. It's going to be back soon enough.
Yeah, the governor will have his budget address within a couple of weeks.
February 3rd, right, the day after Groundhog Day. So we will start the process again.
It's appropriate, isn't it? Groundhog Day.
Yes, it is.
The budget address. So let us look back. I did this with Representative Struzzi when he was here a week or so ago, asking about, looking back at last year, which was so dominated by the budget issues, and really not as much probably got done on other issues as you or any of your colleagues would have preferred, because so much of it was all about the budget last year. So when we look back, Reggie was, that court decision was huge, and the budget, those both dominated talks. So the way I asked it of Representative Struzzi, I'm going to probably phrase it differently than I did of him. I'm sure we're happy about the Reggie decision, but at the same time, is there enough structure in place to prevent another governor from doing it on some other issue somewhere down the road? We had Ed Rendell with California emissions. We had Tom Wolf with Reggie. Do we now have the structure in place to prevent some other governor from tying us to some other compact that is going to handcuff whoever the next governor and the one after that and the one after that?
So the balance of co-equal governance is something for me that's really come to the front of my mind over the last 3 years. And you're right, executive power is enormous. And you take the good with the bad on executive power, right? Depending, obviously, who's in the governor's chair, who's in the White House, your view on executive power is going to change. But you do have to take a step back and try to balance the authority of the executive with the co-equal status of the legislature. Now, the challenge with that status is when you have a divided legislature politically, we limit ourselves in terms of our balance to the executive. So it's always a concern. Executive overreach is a huge concern. And could a future governor try to go down this path again? Sure. But I think we laid the groundwork for demonstrating how difficult it really would be to ultimately get us into something like Reggie. But you're right, there are other rules and regulations that a governor has the ability to pursue. We can stop them under certain circumstances, but it needs the Senate and the House to be part of that.
Yeah, I heard somebody saying that the Reggie wrestling that was done over the last 8 or 10 years has been what have pushed us into the future with projects such as Homer City redevelopment, that it accelerated what would have been a more natural process. Do you agree with that?
I'm not sure I see it that way. The reality is what Reggie did over the last 6 years is create a umbrella of uncertainty in the power production marketplace in Pennsylvania. And from my vantage point, it by and large froze the ability of electric generators to make decisions. I'm hopeful that once we have put Reggie aside, that you may see some comfort in some of our other electric generation facilities to move forward and perhaps plan for the future. The Homer project is a one of a kind, right? It's the largest natural gas plant in the country. It is the product, I think, of perfect footprint in terms of utility access, water supply that already exists, acreage that already exists, and familiarity with that kind of power production at the site, and the advent of artificial intelligence. And so I think Homer has kind of set its own course. But make no mistake, the Reggie conversation, of course, would be impactful to their future plans as well, because they would have had to pay for the privilege of emitting carbon as they produced electricity.
There is perceived and probably very realistic deficit in energy production when you consider future demand, almost immediate future demand, and capacity right now. And we lost a lot of that capacity with Reggie coming on and all of these power plants that were retired prematurely. How difficult is it going to be to catch up with that, and what role can the government play in that?
It's very difficult. The first role the government can play is get out of the way, right? Allow the market to do what the market does best, and we're starting to see that. But secondly, you're right. We've taken a lot of capacity offline, and it doesn't come back on with a flip of a switch, no pun intended. But it's the reality that you can take it offline quickly, but getting it back online is a whole nother conversation. Homer City, Cheswick, Reesdale, Bruce Mansfield, Mitchell, Hatfield, those are just some of the plants that have been taken offline over the last 10 to 15 years, and we've gotten in our own way whenever it comes to new generation. The Renovo plant in Clinton County is a perfect example of where there was a huge natural gas plant there planned, but environmentalists and the bureaucracy got in the way of it. And we can't afford to do that, or we're all going to suffer the consequences. And we see it right now in these outrageous electric bills that we're experiencing. This is a product of us looking the other way for years and years and years and trying to make sure we had the supply to meet the demand.
Yeah, I could continue this conversation about energy and ask about the futures for Shalakta and Seward and Huff, but I want to move on to other things because Here comes a brand new year, which you can look at in a variety of different ways. We've got difficulties, we've got problems down the road. At the same time, it's a brand new opportunity, and I'm sure that you and the legislature, just as everybody else feels, why not take advantage of it? Let's find a way that we can get some positive things done in 2026. What would you like to see happen legislatively, and what would be your priorities for this year?
My overall priority is stability, to try to figure out a way to stabilize our budgetary situation. As we've talked many times on this show, we have a structural problem here in the Commonwealth in terms of our spending and our revenues. That's not new to Pennsylvania. We've had this type of structural challenge for decades, but it's becoming a critical issue here increasingly. And it's the one thing in the budget that I am most disappointed with, is that we didn't do more to tackle the structural deficit. But when you're in a divided government, you have to have that give and take. And we made a decision that getting us out of Reggie, and also the permitting reform, which hasn't been talked about a lot. 2 years in a row now, we've done some significant permitting reform. We felt that those two issues were worth accomplishing because they help address the long-term problems that the state has, which is our demographic trajectory and our economic trajectory. And any given budget is not going to fix those two trajectories. Making substantial changes to the way we treat job creators will.
There are any number of issues across Pennsylvania that are statewide that we could visit this morning. I want to talk specifically about transportation, about the road system, and really about rail, whether that is a viable passenger option for folks. But when you get to the highways themselves and you see the turnpike and their annual increases, which we can anticipate for every year now for the foreseeable future, which makes Route 322 a very lovely drive. But when you think about the formula, with less people using gasoline and therefore less taxes being collected to help to rebuild roads and make new roads, is there an answer, or is there a solution that is being examined to try to make sure we have good, safe roads?
There's not a good answer, Todd, and quite frankly, what we have seen in the last 24 hours in our weather pattern is a good example of this. This freeze-thaw cycle that we experience wreaks havoc on roads. 24 hours ago, we were in the mid-40s. Today, we're in the teens. Whenever you have that kind of cycle, moving roads, heaving roads, cracking them, creating potholes, it becomes a real challenge to maintain. The one thing we did about a year ago is we are now making sure electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles pay their fair share. They now pay a registration fee that's more commensurate with what they would pay at the pump, which we thought was very, very important. Now, the interesting thing is I'm not sure the electric vehicle fad is really taken off, so it's not going to generate a ton of revenue, but we made sure that that was in place now, because if they do take off, we have them paying their fair share. It's a hard network to manage. We have more road miles in Pennsylvania than New York and the New England states do combined. And when you add that to the freeze-thaw cycle we talked about, when you add it to the number of bridges we need to go over streams and railroads and everything else, it's a complicated network to manage. And the issues of multimodal, as you pointed out with railroad and rail, that's a critical piece of this, not only from a freight perspective, but also a passenger perspective. I know Amtrak has been looking to accelerate the number of passenger lines that travel from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia. That's great, but it's hard in a society where you have to move immediately to be able to take your time and deal with a train that comes once or twice through the state a day.
Yeah.
So it's a big problem. The one thing we have to pay attention to, Norfolk Southern and Union Pacific are looking at a merger and what impacts that may have nationally, quite frankly, on the movement of freight.
Yeah.
That's a critical question.
Yeah. All kinds of things that we could talk about for 2026. For you, legislatively, beyond budget, beyond energy, education, I know is going to be a big part of education funding. What are going to be the big topics that we hear about this year that perhaps we haven't heard that much about so far?
That we haven't heard that much about so far. That's a really interesting question. I think we're going to start to hear more and more and more about the challenges with healthcare. Again, with our aging demographic, the pressures that are being put on rural healthcare and rural communities is accelerating. It's a real challenge. The federal government, through the big beautiful bill last July, has allocated $193 million to Pennsylvania specifically for rural health care. That's going to be a big focus in the months ahead. And that, again, is why I'm so happy that IUP is moving forward on their medical school. Indiana Regional Medical Center has the residency program. They have their partnership with Punxsutawney and Armstrong Hospital. I just toured the ER in Punxsutawney earlier this week, and it is a beautiful, beautiful facility. We're so lucky to have that in the region.
Yeah, nice. So that's going to be one of the real hot topics in this coming year.
I believe so.
All right. Back in session a couple of weeks, right?
The 26th, yeah. We'll be in session for a couple weeks. The budget hearings then with the Appropriations Committee will go, and next thing you know, we'll be in June.
Yeah. Yeah, how about that? So headed around the district today? You got a meeting scheduled?
I'm in Indiana all day today. I was in Punxsutawney on Monday. I was in Punxsutawney on Monday. The days all run together.
Yeah,
and I've been in Indiana County most of the week. I spent 3 trips over to Katanning last week, and I will tell you on January 23rd, next Friday, I'm participating in the Polar Plunge at the Armstrong School District.
There you go.
So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to raise a couple bucks for Special Olympics.
Not in the indoor pool either, huh?
Oh, no, we'll be outside.
River?
No, they bring a tank in, almost
tank.
like a dunk tank. Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to jump in that river.
I'll make a big splash.
Well, as cold as it's going to be next week, you might bounce off out of it. If it was the
that
river.
is true. That is true.
Senator Joe Pittman, thanks so much.
All right, Todd. Thank you.
It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com, 826, Westwood One Sports next.